Hello, welcome to Joy News Exclusive. Now, acquiring a piece of land in Ghana is generally very complicated. Sometimes one piece is sold to several people, leading to disputes and clashes with very deadly and devastating consequences. As a country, it appears everyone wants a proper legal framework to protect the interests of all land stakeholders. A land administration project was launched in 1999 to help the streamlining of things. So what's the status of these streamlining efforts? Today on Joy News Exclusive, we'll be talking about customary land administration, lands in the hands of chiefs.
The Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources started the Land Administration Project to intervene in land matters from 2003 to 2008. The project was extended to 2011 to review the legal framework in administering lands in the country.
Before 1999, there was no land policy in this country. Laws were passed, institutions and agencies were managing land differently. We had the agencies, the Lands Department, then the Lands Commission, the Land Title Registry, and so many of them. The districts, assemblies themselves are also land management institutions.
About 80% of land in the country is still held by customary land owners. The state, by use of legislature, manages only 20%.
Literacy is very low. Some of the people who are in authority, some of them are illiterate. They don't have boundaries. Their land boundaries are not properly demarcated and marked, which it's the cause of conflicts between and amongst them sometimes. The multiple sales of lands, which is a very big issue because of lack of records. They are not able to keep records of the transactions that they have done before. And so it's likely that you will grant one land to one person and then the same number is going to another person.
The customary land secretariats are specialized offices within land-owning communities to streamline land management at their local level and to find relief to all players in the land sector. There are, however, some challenges.
The land policy identified so many problems mitigating against proper development of lands in this country. The policy identified indeterminate boundaries by customary land owners, indiscipline, general indiscipline in the land market. People are selling land many times, multiple sales of land. People who didn't have capacity to grant lands were granting it. And it's not as if it is over. We have issues of the agencies themselves, the public land agencies themselves. There are multiplicity. Some of them were duplicating each other in performance of their duties. We can talk about absence of maps and all these things that would support a modern land information system were all missing.
Under LAP 1, 37 customary land secretariats were established throughout the country to start engaging customary land owners to collect accurate records of their lands and help them in legally documenting ownership of these lands. LAP 1 was basically a proposal by the Secretariat to customary land owners urging them to properly document their land. Under LAP 2, a demand-led approach was adopted to sensitize owners of stool, family and clan lands to sign on to the project.
So many customary land owners have applied for the establishment of the CLSs. As we are speaking, we have prepared 20 of them to be established this year. So far, we have done 10. And I can tell you, they are across the country. We have Boku, Kusau, CLS. We have Buwa, Zini in the upper west region, Achim, Suedro, in the eastern region, Eguafo in the central region, Manche Agbona, Nyesi Alata, Jamestown here in Accra. We have Adakranja in Ashanti region, Avatime, Ivane in the Volta region, Pembi, Salaga in the northern region, in Eastern Zama, Atuabo in the western region, and we have Dwyer and Kwanta in the Brown Hafo. This is the first set.
Well, welcome back to, I beg your pardon, welcome back to Johnny's Exclusive. I was going to say welcome back to PM Express, but yes, welcome back to Johnny's Exclusive, and we're discussing lands in the hands of chiefs. So I have with me in the studio Patrick Awuah, who is Patrick Amoah, I beg your pardon. Patrick Amoah is Director of Operations and Deputy Administrator of Stu Lands. It's great to have you in the studio. So, I mean, the footage we've just seen kind of gives us a background of the major problems facing land administration issues in Ghana in general. So, I mean, from where you stand, what problem is the LAP, for example, seeking to solve?
Yeah, generally, as the footage we saw, land administration in this country is not the best. We have so many problems bedeviling land administration, both in the customary sector and the public sector. And so in 1999, when the land policy was brought up, the state found it very necessary to make sure that these problems are resolved in a way. So therefore, the land administration project is an intervention by the state to at least mitigate this problem, if not eliminate the problems in totality. So we realize that these problems, some of them are...
So what problems are we talking about?
So
one, legal title, two, ownership, demarcations. What exactly?
Yeah, the problems are very numerous. We have the issue of indeterminate boundaries. The allodia titles, farms and other owners don't have their titles really determined to show the boundaries between their land and that of their neighbors. Again, especially in the urban areas, there were the problem of people selling lands to different to prospective developers without recourse to giving title and other things. There were also multiple sales, family members selling lands, one piece of land to different people, and the market was really chaotic.
It's still chaotic, right?
It is, but that is why the intervention, we shouldn't expect that things will go off just like that. But gradually we are going there. People were not able to document their land transactions, and it took a very long time. But now with some of these interventions, especially during the LAP 1, we've been able to reduce the time we used to process some of these documents, sometimes 3 years, but now within 7 months, 6 months, you will be able to get, and we're working on it. So all these problems has brought about this intervention we call Land Administration Project. The first part ended a couple of years ago, and we've begun the second Land Administration Project.
So let's discuss some specific. If I take, for example, I get a land to buy at Bawe, and it is a chief who sold me the land. The land belongs to the chief. If you go, let's say Chief A has, Chief A is the one who sold the land to you, but you go and you go to the Lands Commission to verify ownership, and you find out that it is actually the name of Chief B who is on the title.
Yes.
What do you do? What remedies are available?
These are some of the issues. You see, the concept of ownership is what is really causing the trouble. Who owns the land is an issue. you go to a particular area which is customary owned, the land is customary owned, like a family or a stool, as you said, as a layman, you said the chiefs own the land. In reality, it's not the chief who owns the land, it's the entire stool, but he is the leader of that group. So apparently, when it comes to disposition and documentation, he has to sign, but he does not own the land in the right sense of the word, right? So when you, as the chief of Bawi, and you have your subjects staying on their lands, you see, it is the individual lands being occupied by the subject that come together to form the totality of stool lands, which you, the chief, is the head. So the individuals, or which we call the customary freeholder, they have equal right to that piece of land which has been cultivated by their ancestors and they are now occupied. So if you, chief, you dispose of the land without recourse to these people, they will definitely, the prospective buyer will have problems.
Okay.
Because they will never sit down for their chief to take their land. You know, until these days where we have white collar jobs, everybody was relying on land. We were basically farmers. So if a chief should dispose or take your land, the land of your subject, and give it out to a stranger,
he's taking your livelihood.
That is it. So, and that principle is still there. It doesn't matter the society is now urbanized or we have other sources of livelihood. So if you sell land and you go to the Lands Commission to check, the problem is that if you know you have the land, you have to register with the Lands Commission that you are the title holder of this piece of land lying here with all the descriptions, so that anybody who takes the document will be able to identify the land on the ground. And if you have that lodged with the Lands Commission, I don't think anybody can sell that land and be able to register at the Lands Commission. But more often than not, people sit in the comfort of their homes and think the land belongs to them, while other people will take the step to go and register, because these people are also part of the stool or part of the family. So when a family has gone to register the land as a family land, and you as the chief, you sit in your house and gives out the land to somebody, you go there and you find out that the chief's name is not in the document of Lands Commission.
All right. So
yeah.
So the understanding I got from this first footage was that the land administration project secretariats across the country was in consultation with the chiefs to, one, streamline ownership, collect data, and help them to properly document ownership of their land. Why is this necessary if over the years, over the years of their family lineage, they know that the land belongs to their family? Do they need now to come forward to document?
Yes, they do. You see, in this country, more than 75% of land holdings is in the hands of customary land administrators. Chiefs, families, clans, Atafo companies, kings, Tindanes, they own this land. But unfortunately, the type of administration they are disposed to is not the best. In fact, it's a bane of our land administration. So now the state think that if we want this country to develop, land being the fundamental resource for development must be well managed. So this intervention of customary land secretariat and ascertainment of customary law and practices are all meant to document the existing customs and also make sure that land administrators at that level are able to keep good records, because people sell land, they don't keep records. Now the original lessor or the person who sold it might have died. A new chief comes, and when he comes, this latter day chiefs, unfortunately for them, the land has almost all their lands has been disposed of in one way or the other. So they come and take the throne and they have virtually nothing. You get the point. They have virtually nothing, because these days, even though you are a chief over people, you don't rule over people. In the olden days, when chiefs need something, their subjects feed them. People go, hunters go to hunt, they bring meat to the chief. If the chief's wives need mortar, the mortar maker will bring. The palm wine tapper will bring
some palm wine.
But now, even if the chief wants to buy, the man, instead of at least reducing it for chief, you say, oh, it has already been sold or it's not for sale. So therefore, if you're a chief and you have no land, it's like
you have no title.
You have no title. You are nobody. So therefore, most of these lands has already been given out. So when the latter day chief comes, they ask, what's your document?
If you don't have documents, they kick you out.
You kick you out, or come and let us go into another agreement. But you and I know that a stranger cannot come and take over a land which does not belong to him without anything happening. And if you come, you inherit somebody, you become a chief, your uncle or your father died and you took over, you have to take the burdens and the benefits, the assets and the liabilities. But unfortunately, he asks you of documents and you don't have. So they start using different ways,
including
and subtle means to force people
and
to
other things.
buy lands they have already occupied for years. And so these things we want to stop, because it's really not good for development. And that is why the states want this customary land secretariat to be established. In fact, this is not the state establishing it for them. We are just facilitating, helping them. But it is the baby of the traditional authority or the family who owns the land. They are to make sure it works. But we of the Office of Administrator of Stool Lands, as the lead agency for this program, we will be constantly monitoring, advising, and giving support in training to make sure it works.
So tell me what has been done in Accra, for example. Which parts of Accra do you now have viable customary land secretariats or anything, yes, and how efficient are they working?
Yeah, Accra, the flagship customary land secretary is the Bawe family. In fact, they had something going already, and so what the project is to reinforce their position for them, and indeed they are doing well, because they have a secretariat where they know all the people who have bought land from the family. They have records. They know when rents are due to be collected
on the land.
And if you have any problem, you go there, it is resolved. If you want to buy land, you go there, they will look in the records and see whether that land is vacant, it has not been given out to anybody. Then you go ahead and process. Apart from that, we also have one at Amamale or something. Yes, I'm not so conversant
with the names.
Yes, that one too is going on. That is also a family. Then recently we've established one at English Alata. That is Jamestown. We've furnished their offices for them. We left with the inauguration. They have the coordinator in place and everything is set for them to move on. In fact, they have quite a number of villages under them in the greater Accra. So it will be better for them to really put in a lot to make this thing work. You see, this customary land secretariat is going to run parallel with the public land administration, but it is not competing with that. But that is going to be the first point of call if someone needs information about land in a particular setting. Yes, that
to first consult with the local owners of the land before
then let
going
them
ahead
check their records and see whether the land you want to buy or you want to acquire is not encumbered. Because if you don't do that, you go and buy land. Now people are selling. Family members are selling because family heads do not account for what they sell to them, all the members. So what do? If you're a member of a family and your family head sells land, you don't see anything. That land does not belong to him. He just happened to be the head of the family. Or the land belongs to all of you, and so you should all benefit. But if you are not benefiting, then what do? So if you see the land is vacant and you also get a buyer, you go ahead and sell. Then they go and they crash. You see, this is the problem we have. Then we ought to make sure we have systems put in place to make sure these things are rectified. Other than that, the development of this country is in danger.
Will be hampered.
It will be hampered, extremely hampered, because everything is on land.
That's right.
If you fly, you will land.
You will land, definitely.
That is it.
So, I mean, are there timelines? Are there timelines for which you're setting your administration of stool lands is setting that all these customary land secretariats will be fully fledging and functional? Have you given yourself timelines?
Yes, the project itself is timed. We don't have all the times on our hands. So this year, for example, in fact, every year we have to establish 10. We are establishing 50 CLSs for the Lab 2, which will run for about 5 years. And every year we are supposed to establish 10 of these. Last year, because of some initial problems, we were not able to establish them properly, so-called. But this year, we are able to establish the first 10, the second 10 by the close of the year. In fact, we've started, we will have. So this year, we've been able to make 20. Then, after we have supplied everything, we are monitoring. Now, some of them are even due for official inauguration. We're going to have official inauguration of some of them. Then when we finish with them, then we will do training for the staff who are going to there, because they have to have at least basic knowledge in land administration, bookkeeping, records keeping, and others to be able to handle the documents. Now with the old ones, we have, in order to make sure they are able to survive, the project has commissioned consultants to develop business plans for them, 15 of them. In fact, the business plan, the consultants have presented the final draft report. The Office of Administrator of Stool Land as the lead agency, we have reviewed the whole business plans, and our report has been sent back to them to be incorporated in the final report. So we hope when this thing comes out, it will help the various customary land secretariats to be able to stand on their feet.
Right, you're watching Joy News Exclusive. My name is Stephen Enti, and I'm here having a chat with Patrick Amoah, who is the Director of Operations and the Deputy Administrator of Stool Lands. You can send in your comments on Facebook, facebook.com/Joy News, and we will read it. If you've had particular challenges with land, or if you have some question you want to put to Mr. Amoah, we'll be very glad to read your question, and he'll provide some answers. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to Joy News Exclusive. My name is Stephen Enti, and today we're talking about lands in the hands of chiefs. And I've got some of your messages coming in. We'll read some of them and then we'll continue with the program. Musa Abatoa says that we have a law. Do we have a law that regulates that act? And Emmanuel Esiedu says, well, I believe the ministry in charge of lands and the Lands Commission should enforce the laws so landowners will abide by them. And John Cosby says, please, I want more news on land issues because I want to buy a land in Accra. Andrew Mawonyo Dunamis Day, your name is very long. You say this multiple selling is even done by some chiefs. It is high time we call our chiefs and other individuals to order. Processing land documents and accurate keeping of the records should be strictly ensured. More so, educating the various actors, especially our chiefs, will go a long way to curb these mishaps. Thanks very much for that comment, Andrew. And Erikel Opong Asante says there should be a law that will deal with the chiefs who are 419. 419, you are referring to fraudsters, chiefs who are fraudsters. Thanks, Erikel. And John Cobby again says, I want more news on land because I want to buy some in Accra. Amos Tina says, this is so serious an issue in Ghana. I'm still chasing a guy for my money for giving me fake land documents. Now Kokoi Pencil says, please, I want to know the difference between leasehold and the other one. You didn't finish, but I guess you want to ask the difference between leasehold and freehold. This is a legal term. I'll put it to Mr. Amwa. I do hope he could get some answer on that for you. And Andrew again says, Amos, you should have checked from a registry if indeed those documents were genuine. That's an answer to Amos's query that someone gave him fake land documents. And Sadat Yakubu, you say, I didn't know the land in my hometown does not belong to the chief alone until today. Joy News exclusive. Thanks for the education. Well, that's what we do here. We make sure that you get sufficient information about the issues that we cover. So let's listen to the second part of our documentary. Stay with us.
But what really is the success story of the Lab 2 project? We were told that before the end of the year, Kashmir Land Secretariat, numbering about 20, will be set up nationwide to run as private entities. There would be secretariats in places like Navrongo, Akwemufie, Breman, Esekuma, Teshi, Juabin, Jasikan, Nanton, Yo, Aring, and Nahenekoko in the Bronwahafo region.
The project is being supported by the World Bank and other development partners.
What's the key focus of that support fund?
The support is total. Apart from CEDA, that is more focused into rural development, the World Bank itself is funding most of the project's funds are coming from them.
What legal dimensions determine the rules that each of these traditional areas use in administering their lands?
And the starting point is the Constitution. Under Article 11 of the 1992 Constitution, it sets out what the sources of law in Ghana are. It talks about the Constitution as the supreme one. It talks about acts of parliament. It talks about subsidiary legislation. Then it mentions the common law of Ghana and defines the common law of Ghana to include customary law.
To ascertain the right information on who administers lands on behalf of the families within the communities, traditional authorities, farmers, and indeed ordinary people are consulted to find out who the key people are in order to avoid controversy. Information gathered is often validated to ensure its authenticity.
Ascertaining customary law is not an easy thing. On the average, to ascertain customary law from each traditional area, you need about 4 months. About between 2 to 3 months to collect the data, because you have to send people in. They have to first of all do a profiling of the area. You have to send data collectors in for them to have some focus group meetings, some key person interviews, and then try and find a way of harmonizing the information. We have also spoke with people with disability. We spoke with the youth because we wanted to find out what their perceptions, all these people's perceptions on land and family issues are.
For every project, the key issue is funding.
There is a broad amount of money allocated to this under the decentralization of service delivery component of our work, and Kashmir Land Secretariat is part of that, and it's costing about $4.68 million. What we did in Lab 1 was that we decided at that time to go through what we call a supply-led approach. We rather went to the NANOM and told them, look, we've come and we want to help you do that. And basically, that was problematic in a sense that they didn't have any sense of ownership. They did not show any commitment because the thing was foisted on them. And under Lab 2, it is rather a demand-driven approach where we rather telling them to apply if they're really interested in it and make sure that, for instance, they provide office space and have some people where they think they have already some human resource personnel we could do train. And once they do that, we're able to come to help to their aid.
We also sought to find out what conditions must exist to make one eligible as a beneficiary of this project.
You may have to commit yourself to subjecting yourself to alternative dispute resolution mechanisms to resolve issues on boundaries. And so there's some sort of interlinkage between the Kashmir Land Secretariat, their establishment, and then the Kashmir Boundary Demarcation we are doing for traditional authorities.
But how about the National House of Chiefs and their contribution towards the project?
They've been quite helpful in terms of they coming to listen and wanting to know what they could do to be able to do their part in terms of land administration in this country. We've got what we call the Ascertainment of Customary Law project, which we are doing. The National House of Chiefs are doing with the Ghana law reform, and that is also another aspect of things we are doing, where we're trying them to let them ascertain customary rights to land, the way they were sent to the throne and things like that, and so on. And this is something that is critical to the National House of Chiefs. That we are working with them, and they are really driving the process.
Welcome back to Joy News Exclusive, and today we're talking about lands in the hands of chiefs, specifically customary land administrations. We've seen that most of you have sent in some of your comments, and I particularly like the comment of Andrew, who is advising Amos that you should have checked from the registry if indeed some documents were genuine. And Andrew again says that there must be unity. There must be unity in the administration of Stuland. So, Mr. Amor, let's quickly run through some of these concerns that came on Facebook. For example, somebody didn't even know that the community owned the land and not a particular chief.
Yeah, that is, you see, it's about the definition of what we call stool land. I think in the first part, I made it clear that the stool comprises two groups of people: the subject and the leadership. The leadership are the chief, the Ohima and the chairman and those groups. Then the subject. These two group of people crop up to form the totality of a stool. So if we say stool land, it's principally a congregation of lands occupied by members of the stool.
There shouldn't be one man, one chop kind of thing.
No. So that is why in most jurisdictions you realize that when somebody is put or installed, a piece of land is reserved for that person. We normally say asasiwe di atwakonya, which simply means that whoever is the chief, that piece of land is what you have the exclusive right to use. But the land for your subjects, you can never dispose of without their prior consent and concurrence. They have to accept. So if a stranger comes to you that he has seen this land and he wants it, you, the chief, should not sit in your palace, go into agreement with the person, take money, and apparently give the land to. You have to call the family who have been occupying and using that land and tell them the story that this person wants this land. So if they accept it, then the negotiations and everything, they have to be part of it. In fact, they have to get a lion's share of the money. But because it's stool land, individuals can't give. It is the entire stool that has to give. And the chief is the head of the stool. So apparently when it comes to documentation, he has to sign on behalf of the stool. But it doesn't mean that he has to take the money from the land.
Share,
that is it.
Yeah,
yes, he has to talk with the family. They all have to come to a consensus before the land is disposed of. If the family insists that they are not going to allow the land to go, I don't think the chief have right to take the land by force. It is only the states that have that right of eminent domain
to take the land,
by force.
No chief has
but that
any
one
right.
too, they have to pay prompt and adequate compensation. Right. But chiefs, you can't do that. In the olden days, if you do that, you can be distilled because you are taking the livelihood out of the mouth of your people.
So, I mean, in the effort to streamline customary land administration, what is the level of cooperation from the chiefs and customary leaders, community leaders in this effort of yours?
Yeah, in the lap 1, because it was the state that selected the areas, what we called, it was supply led. We supplied the customary land secretariat to them. So most of the chiefs did not own the project. They thought it was a state intervention in their land administration. And you know, some of these landowners, they do a lot of underground things, and they didn't want the state to come in. So virtually, we had a problem. Few of the chiefs and landowners accepted it because we educated them on it and they accepted. But some of them were still skeptical about the whole process. So we never had the cooperation we wanted.
Okay.
But with the second phase, which is demand-led, it means they have to demand. We have set out.
What's the meaning of that? I mean, they have to demand what from you?
They have to apply for customary land secretariats to be established in their area.
Okay, so and that you assist them to do that.
We assist them to do that. And the Office of Administrator of Stool Land prepared a manual which set out clearly what we want you to do before you qualify to have this land secretariats established in your area.
Right, Ms. Amo, I'll have you hold, and then so that we can go back to the third part of the documentary on lands in the hands of chiefs. We'll be back right in the studio for the discussion afterwards.
We headed to English Yalata in Jamestown to find out what they have been doing under the Land Administration Project and whether or not they are benefiting from this initiative with regards to Accra lands.
English Yalata traditional area falls within, from Jamestown proper, that is British Accra, to the borders of the western part of Accra, that is Langma. We share boundary with Nyanyano up to Bojuase area, where J. Kodwa up to Adesu. So when you talk about Jamestown lands, we fall within 3 or 4 municipal assemblies, that is Accra Metro, Ghana West, Ghana South, and part of Ghana Central. It's a very large area. And the issues that we know this CLS is going to address is about management of these lands and how we can get resources from after even the caretakers have sold the lands to individual clients. When you come to the major area like Jamestown, there are areas like the housing that are within the area where there are no documents. And we know through this CLS, we're going to streamline getting documents for all the houses that are within the Jamestown proper. We go to Kolegono, Mamprobi, Choko, Dansoman, up to all those areas that I've already mentioned.
The Stool Secretary is very optimistic that the project will assist the traditional authorities to monitor development of their areas and gradually bring an end to land border dispute and help them raise revenue through the collection of ground rents and proper documentation of their land.
It's going to assist us to look at some of our boundary disputes with the central region where administrative boundaries comes in, and then political and traditional structures are. For instance, this morning, a town like Ulagono, which is within the traditional area, falls under the Senya Breku district. And so some of these things we know will be addressed when this CLS is working. These commercial properties don't pay anything after acquiring the land, putting up their structures. And we know with this CLS, we're going to collect these ground rents to assist the assemblies and then the traditional authorities to get at least some form of monies every time to manage or to develop the respective areas and then the traditional area.
He equally believes that the program will help minimize land cases in court, as well as the incidents and engagement of land guards.
In the area of where disputes are coming up, that is where land guards, the law courts are all choked with land dispute matters. So when this instrument is being used, we know it is going to solve all these problems.
We also caught up with the Greater Accra Regional Stool Officer, who explained a few issues.
It is the first point of contact for somebody who wants to acquire land. Now, when the CLS is formed, we also form a land management committee. And this land management committee is supposed to work hand in hand with the CLS. The land management committee, the members are supposed to come from the traditional council. So, for example, if they have, let's say, 18 divisional stools under the traditional authority, we expect that there will be 18 members in the land management committee, each from one divisional council.
Well, it appears there is hope in sight.
Welcome back. I'll wrap today's show with a few more of your comments. Fred Nogbe says, to ensure proper land administration, I suggest all lands within the borders of Ghana should belong to the state. In fact, our cities can't be planned as modern cities just because of the present land tenure system. Even government roads and parks are sold to multiple buyers. We need to follow examples of developed countries like South Africa, US, etc. And Godfred Praise says, please kindly ask how much it costs for me to register a 40/80 plot. And also I have downed an indenture and site plan. Do I need to come and register it? Okay, you mean you have done an indenture and site plan. Do you need to come and register it? And how long will that take? And Eugene Saki says, I bought a land through high purchase. What are the process to go through to get registered? So we'll attempt to answer some of these things. But first, somebody wanted to know the difference between leasehold and freehold.
Well, freehold, as the name connotes, means holding it free. A freehold is a situation where a person or a group of people hold land without any limitation apart from the laws of the state.
Or encumbrance. And are there such freeholds?
Yes.
Are there freeholds in Ghana?
Yeah, there are. You know, people bought stool lands some time ago, what we call alienated lands, and those people are holding it freehold. But now, with the promulgation of the 1992 Constitution, you cannot create freehold in a stool land.
Okay.
Yes, that is the provision 267. It's stated categorically that you cannot create freehold in stool lands.
So which lands have freeholds?
No, lands which are individually owned.
Okay, all right then.
Yes, they are freehold. And a leasehold is also an interest which is normally carved out of a freehold or allodial title. The main ingredient of a leasehold is that it's time certain. That is, it's limited by time.
Okay.
That is why we say you've been given a leasehold of 99 years. 21 years, 15 years.
Okay.
At the expiration of that period, you have to leave the land.
Or repurchase. Is that possible?
You don't repurchase.
If you have a house on it,
yes,
after 90 years, what do you do?
The whole idea is that whatever leasehold you take, the time you take, you know that whatever investment you put on the land, by the expiration of that period, you will have recouped your investment. So when you are going, you have to just go with your bag and leave the building, whether it's 10-story, 5-story, you leave to the landowner.
That's very interesting, right?
When so the advice is that if you want renewal, you must make sure it is in the covenant or the agreement that the land will be renewed for you. If you don't do that, it is not compulsory for the landowner to renew.
They can choose to resell to you, right? And then Godfred is asking how much it will cost for a 40/80 plot. You wouldn't know, right?
No, yeah.
It depends. And then he says he has an indenture. And so what does he need to do with an indenture and a site plan? Does he need to register it?
Yes, you have to register. Indenture is just the agreement.
The proof of
you
purchase.
Buy land, somebody sells you land, you enter into an agreement with all the necessary covenants or the do's and don'ts, then you have to make sure that land is registered. Now, if you want to register it at the deeds registry at the Lands Commission, you have to submit with the requisite number of site plans signed by the director of survey or his representative and the person who gave the land to you. Everybody sign. Then you present. You pay some fees at the Lands Commission, because I don't want to talk about the cost here.
Well, I'm afraid we don't have a lot of time to go into that, but we're very grateful, Mr. Patrick Amoah, who is Director of Operations and Deputy Administrator of Stu Lands here in Accra. My name is Stephen Enti, and thanks for staying with us on Joy News Exclusive.